I found them the night she couldn't sleep. The house had been too quiet since the funeral. Every sound sharpened by absence, the ticking clock, the hum of the heater, the sigh of wind brushing the glass. She had asked me to stay in the guest room, but when I passed her door, I saw her sitting upright, motionless, like she was waiting for someone to enter. Her pillow looked uneven, swollen at one side. When she finally drifted off, I reached for it, not out of suspicion, but instinct. The first envelope slid out like a secret exhaling. My father's handwriting. The ink had bled slightly, pale blue against yellow paper. There were 6 of them, tied with a faded gray ribbon. I remember the smell, old wood and dust, the kind that stays on your fingertips. I took one to the kitchen light. His words began with, "My dearest Althea," but the lines weren't love. They were instructions, where to store documents, who to trust, what not to tell me. By the second letter, his tone softened into regret. He mentioned a night at Whitlock Creek, something about a photograph that shouldn't exist. She must have read these every evening before sleep. As if his voice were still breathing beside her. The morning after, she noticed the ribbon untied. I waited for her to accuse me, but she only pressed the pillow flatter. Her eyes fixed on the window. "He wrote you too," she said, almost tenderly. I denied it, though a part of me wished it were true. At breakfast, she served coffee in silence, stirring sugar until the spoon clicked against the porcelain like a metronome. "You think grief belongs to one person," she murmured, "but it multiplies quietly." That night, I placed the letters back, folding the corners exactly as I'd found them. Yet one line wouldn't leave me. "If he finds these, tell him it was mercy." I never asked what mercy meant. Weeks later, the bed in her room was stripped bare. The pillow gone. She'd left Whitlock City without a note. Only a faint indentation where her head once rested. When I opened the drawer, there was one new envelope waiting, addressed in my own handwriting. I don't remember writing it. Inside was a single sentence, "We only hide what we can't bury." The clock stopped soon after, and the house filled with the soft rustle of feathers escaping. The pillow she'd taken, drifting down the empty hallway like snow no one remembered inviting. The house had learned to whisper her name. Every night, I'd hear the slow rhythm of her breathing through the wall. The faint shift of fabric as she turned her pillow over. She said it kept its shape better that way, though I knew it was the side that hid the letters. The curtains stayed closed, even during daylight. She avoided the mirror, and her voice had grown quiet enough to match the stillness of the glass. I started noticing small things, creases in her sheets like folded wings. The way she wiped the same spot on the window each morning. The faint rust mark on the lock of the drawer where my father once kept his fountain pens. On the mantel sat his photograph, half shadowed by a dead flower she refused to throw away. Sometimes I'd catch her sitting before it, lips moving without sound. When she saw me watching, she would rise and offer me tea, pretending her silence wasn't trembling. I wanted to ask about the letters but couldn't find the right time. The house seemed to hold its breath whenever I spoke his name. One night, she asked if I still dreamed of him. I said no, though the truth was I'd begun dreaming of her instead, standing by the window. Her face turned away, her pillow clutched tight like a secret she couldn't outlive. The change began quietly, like the sound of rain behind walls. One evening I returned from Whitlock Registry to find her sitting at the dining table. The letters arranged in a neat row beside an untouched plate of food. She didn't look up. "He wrote one for each year we were married," she said. Her tone was calm, but her hands trembled as she aligned the corners perfectly. And then he stopped. I asked why she'd hidden them, but she didn't answer. Instead, she brushed her thumb across the top envelope as if to erase my question. The lamplight reflected in her eyes, gold fractured through glass. Your father wanted mercy, she said finally, but mercy isn't always love. I noticed then that the ink on the last envelope was darker, fresher. Though he'd been gone for months. I touched it, and the paper was warm, almost alive. When I looked again, her hand was covering it. Some words aren't meant to be found, she whispered. I wanted to believe her, but later that night, as she walked up the stairs, I saw a small feather fall from her sleeve and land on the floor beside the letters. It glowed faintly under the hallway light, as if the house itself had started to remember what she'd tried to forget. It happened 2 nights later, the storm pressing against the windows like a warning. She had locked herself in the bedroom, though the keyhole glowed faintly, as if light still wanted to escape. I waited by the door, listening to the rustle of fabric, the soft rip of paper. When the thunder cracked, she screamed once, not in fear but in decision. I broke the lock. The room smelled of smoke and lavender. Her pillow lay torn open on the floor, feathers tangled with half-burned pages. Only one letter remained whole, its edges scorched but words intact. You are not forgiven, but you are understood. She sat by the window, hair loose, her hands blackened with ash. He wrote that for himself, she said. Not for me. Not for you. Her voice had thinned into something brittle. Rain slipped through the broken frame and pooled around her feet, dark and shimmering. I wanted to gather the ashes, to salvage something from the wreck, but she stopped me. Let it dissolve, she said. He'll be lighter that way. I saw then that the reflection in the window didn't match the room. Her figure appeared upright, calm, smiling faintly, though in truth she was shaking. For a moment, I couldn't tell which version of her was real. The storm passed, but the window never dried, the glass fogged from the inside, holding its own secret weather. By morning, the rain had stopped, leaving the house wrapped in a dull silver hush. Her room was empty, except for the torn pillowcase, now flattened against the chair. When I touched it, a faint warmth lingered, as if breath had only just left it. The letters were gone. On the nightstand lay my father's cracked watch, still ticking though I hadn't wound it in years. Each click sounded slower, heavier, like a pulse learning to fade. I walked through the quiet rooms, the kitchen still smelled of burnt paper. The hallway window left open, letting in air that felt too clean. At the bottom of the stairs, I found one small envelope wedged under the frame. It was blank, sealed with a gray feather pressed inside. I didn't open it. Some endings ask to remain unseen. When I stepped outside, the puddles on the driveway reflected the clouds perfectly. No sky left to belong to. The house behind me looked transparent in the weak light, its windows glimmering like eyelids half closed. And in that reflection, just for a moment, I saw her, turning the pillow over, smoothing the fabric, waiting for something softer than forgiveness. Then the wind shifted, and she was gone. The only sound left was the ticking of that broken watch, steady as guilt learning to breathe.